Oh. Mm. Hmm. That being said, I want more people to read. You like that? I don't even know what I was doing there. Go, go, go. Hi, I'm Ian, and around here I talk about books because I love to yap. If you're new here, I'd love for you to consider subscribing, click the like, the bell, and be sure to comment. In this video, I'd love to hear what things you are wanting to see in 2025 in the bookish community or in publishing as a trend in general, and what you'd like to see leave. So in this video, I am talking about all the things that I want to leave behind in 2024 and all the things that I want to bring with me in 2025 when it comes to the bookish community and reading, etc. Just a broad stroke of things that I want to see in and out. So note that this is meant to be fun for me. It's fun for me to make this video, and I'm hoping it's fun for you to watch. I can be a bit snarky, but it's all in good fun. It's meant to continue the discussion, as these are just my opinions, not end discussion. That being said, feel free to get a little snarky in the comments below. Just be kind. I love your snark. Without further ado, let's get to it. The first thing that I want to see out in 2025, we can absolutely leave this in 2024, is 24-hour readathons. I think we're done with that. Whenever I am watching someone do a 24-hour readathon, I'm immediately thinking how mentally taxing that is, especially as a neurodivergent individual. A 24-hour readathon would drain my body of any and all dopamine and serotonin. By the end of it, I would just be a walking skeleton of cortisol. I don't need that in my life, and I don't want to watch people do that either. I just cannot imagine what you get out of it, except for maybe a sense of accomplishment, but do you really feel that accomplished when you're that exhausted? Let's leave it behind. Something I want to see in, though, is reading routines. I love the idea of people, rather than doing a 24-hour readathon to catch up, instead just incorporating the habit of reading into their daily lives in an intentional way that eventually leads to something that they don't even have to think about. A lot of people, myself included, will read before bed or maybe first thing in the morning. This usually changes for me. However, I always make it a point to have some sort of cadence and rhythm to my reading schedule, and I just want that for others. When you are able to fit it into an existing schedule, when you're able to like habit stack, popular term, which is essentially having existing habits and then stacking another one on top of what already exists, so that you're not completely reinventing the wheel. But that's something that I love and I genuinely want for people, so that it eventually becomes something you don't even have to think about. It's just rote. Something I want to see us leave behind in 2024 is tagging authors and publishers in your posts when you're reviewing books. I want an authentic opinion that is not a marketing ploy. And when you tag an author or a publisher in your review, usually raving about a book, which is great, I love that you loved the book, but when you do that, I immediately question how much you actually loved the book. It gives pick-me energy, and it also drives my attention away from the book itself and instead makes me think that you're practically selling your love for it. This happens more so on Bookstagram than really anywhere else. It's not a habit that I'm in love with, and it makes me wildly uncomfortable. Not to mention, what happens when you don't like a book? You're just not going to talk about it? I'll get to that later. Something I want to see more of in 2025 is solar punk. For those of you that don't know, solar punk is a subgenre of sci-fi usually, can also be fantasy though. It's a literary and artistic movement that envisions a sustainable future where people live harmoniously with nature and community. The book that I read this year that falls under the solar punk subgenre is A Prayer for the Crown Shy. It was a 5-star book for me. Even though it was published a couple of years ago, I'm like, can we actually just be bringing this into the forefront in 2025? Because cozy fantasy, which I'll get to in a second, I have some problems with. However, solar punk is hitting all of the vibes. What makes me feel cozy when I'm reading is books that are showing decentralized power and systems that are supportive of the individual. I would have to say solar punk over cozy fantasy any day. Something I want to see go is not necessarily cozy fantasy, because there's some cozy fantasy out there that is really, really good. However, a common theme that was pointed out to me by a book talker, I think their name is like Mari, they're incredible. I think they're also an author. Anyway, love them. She pointed out that in cozy fantasy, something that consistently happens is watch me do capitalism. And I'm like, yeah. It worked in Legends and Lattes. It didn't work in bookshops and bone dust. I don't want to watch people start a business, especially as someone who is having to do that themselves right now. I really don't want to be reading anything about it. It does not make me feel cozy. It makes me feel insanely stressed because capitalism is stacking the odds against you. It's giving you the boot without the strap. Now, there aren't a lot of these that are coming out, but it does seem like a lot of the cozy fantasy that is popular is focusing on sort of starting a business and trying to crack the code of being successful in capitalism. One of those being This Bell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I haven't read it. I'm assuming it's good. So many people liked it. I won't be reading it. Something I want to see more of in 2025 is queer mysteries. I read Lev A.C. Rosen's Lavender House this year, and I absolutely freaking loved it. It was such a surprise. Basically, a gay man is charged with solving a murder in this house that is somewhat secluded from the rest of San Francisco in the 1950s. And in this house lives just a bunch of gay people. I loved how traditionally noir the style was, and I also really loved the main character, Evander Mills. Lev A.C. Rosen is expected to release the 4th book in the series in 2025, so I think we're going to start seeing this pick up. Another couple of options that I've heard about in 2025 for queer mysteries is Murder in the Dressing Room by Holly Stars and Two Truths and a Lie by Cory O'Brien. I am just sincerely hoping that this is a subgenre that increases in greater numbers. I didn't know that I needed it until I read Lavender House, and now I really, really need it. One thing I want to see go in 2025 is stickers on books. The ones that you can't remove, you know what I'm talking about? I don't care if Jenna read it. I don't care if Oprah read it. I don't care if Reese read it. I just don't care. Do not force me to look at the eyesore every single time I pick up the book. I actually tried to find a 2025 release that I own that had one of those stickers, you know? Maybe it was one of the book club stickers, or maybe it's being turned into a TV show or a movie, and I realized I hadn't bought any, and I think it may actually be deterring me from purchasing a book like that. Maybe subconsciously, and not so subconsciously anymore because now I'm fully aware of it. One thing that I want to see in or continue to be in 2025 is sprayed edges. This is The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rosh. I love this red sprayed edge here. It really reminds me of paperbacks in like the 60s and 70s when they always had sprayed edges. It feels so pulpy and vintage. I personally love it, and I want more paperbacks to have this. So can we please keep this trend going? Something I'd love to leave behind in 2024 is brain off reading. Now, I want to caveat that I'm not talking about escapism, right? Because there is an absolute difference between the two. Reading something to escape from reality makes perfect sense for me. We should all be doing that and enjoying every moment of it, depending on the story. I'm not saying that you should be annotating or constantly reading between the lines, or that you need to be having some sort of existential crisis while reading a book. But if you are unaware that an author is actually trying to make a statement about humanity or the things that make us human, then you're not actually reading. Reading is meant to spur our imagination, and characters are supposed to inspire empathy, and stories inherently challenge our beliefs through conflict and resolution. If you don't feel challenged, or if you're not seeing the challenge, your brain is off, and you're not doing anyone any favors. That being said, knowing how shitty the world is right now, I will full on be using books to escape. So escapism can stay in 2025. Bring that with us. No tariffs on escapism, please. My favorite example of this is actually, I'm going to mention it probably a million times, but A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. That was a total escape for me. I felt rejuvenated. My soul felt replenished after reading that. But it was a book that said a lot about a lot of things. At the center of the book, it asks the question, what do humans need? And at the end of the book, there is an answer. However, even in the book, there's a whole like economic system that's kind of built around the idea of both karma, but also just taking care of your fellow human because it's just the right thing to do. And that's that. No questions asked. And I can understand how that would upset quite a few people. So it's not this book that is totally apolitical, and it wasn't a book that I could shut my brain off for, but it was a total escape. It actually made me feel like I was in a completely different world. And that to me is the difference between brain off reading and escapism. You can still see the deeper meaning in what you're reading, and it doesn't have to be something that brings you down, makes you sad or depressed, or it doesn't have to be something that brings you back into reality. You can still sort of exist in this other world. Another thing that we need to be leaving behind, though, is reading only one genre or one subgenre. There are readers out there who are only reading one type of story, and I can't. Just this year alone, I've read 30 different subgenres, like genres/subgenres, I love that. It's also way more fun when I'm watching someone on Book Talk or BookTube or Bookstagram and they're talking about a wide array of books, because that gets me excited about something that maybe I wouldn't normally otherwise read, but the person that I'm watching reads a bunch of different things. So there's a solid chance that I might like that one deep cut genre choice that they absolutely love. So all I'm saying is let's just broaden our horizons. I'm actually going to be reading a romantasy book in 2025. That is one of my goals, which I'll make a whole episode about, but I'm going to read one romantasy book, and I am really hoping to find a good one. I am on the fence a bit about whether or not I want to go with something that's just like really popular, really mainstream to really understand why people like it, or if I want to choose something that is more geared towards my interests and the types of stories that I want to be reading, say like queer romantasy, especially like Achillean queer romantasy. That would probably be something that I would be more inclined to stick to and like actually finish rather than DNF, which is a total possibility if I try something that's super duper mainstream. Not that mainstream is really bad. Most mainstream stuff is not queer. It's definitely not Achillean. You know, actually, if you have any suggestions, like please in the comments, let me know. But the point that I'm trying to make is even I'm trying to broaden my horizons still, and I read a ton of different genres. And it's fun to do. Everyone should do that. Clearly, read what you want to read, love what you love. There's nothing wrong with that. Reading is the most important step. That's where we want to start. However, there's so much out there. And it can be so much fun. I want more people to read literary fiction. I love litfic. It's one of my favorite genres in that it's just so broad and you get to spend so much time with the characters. And there's plenty of litfic out there that is more plot driven, that does keep you wondering what is going to happen next, and is still really beautifully written and crafted with amazing characters. One of my favorite examples from 2024 is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. It might be my favorite book of the year. Don't know yet, but I told you I read 30 different genres and my favorite one ended up being literary fiction. There's a lot in there, and luckily it's really broad. So there's so much to love in literary fiction books because there's so many different kinds that can hit all of the things that people want from their stories. And last but not least, I am gonna end on a bit of a down note, but the thing that I wanna see gone, absolutely gone in 2025 is avoiding giving a book a negative review if you didn't like it. I know some people are like, oh, I just like to keep it positive, or I don't want to offend the author, like blah, 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 blah. I get all of that, but like, are you in a manipulative relationship? Are you in an abusive relationship? Like, what's going on that you feel like you can't voice your own opinion? There are really only two perspectives that I'm seeing here. One, you're afraid of the consequences of having a negative opinion about something. Or two, you are unable to articulate your opinions. If you cannot articulate why you didn't like something, I do not trust you to articulate why you liked something. Let me tell you, one of the reasons that I love being a part of like the bookish community is because I get really excited at the idea of finding books that I might possibly love. Even if you dislike a book and you're able to articulate why you dislike it, you might be so accurate in your description of the book that I may find that the things that you didn't like are the things that I might actually like in my books and my stories. Not only could you be indirectly sending people to a book they dislike, but you could be keeping people from reading a book that they might like simply because you couldn't describe why you didn't like it. If an author is going to get offended, that sucks. It does. Receiving negative feedback never feels good. However, no one is responsible for their emotions except themselves. If you're afraid that people are going to dislike you or unfollow you, that is valid. If they dislike you and unfollow you because of how you felt about a book, because you disliked something that they liked, I might just label that emotional immaturity. But if we focus on being able to express our ideas, defend our ideas, and also be in discourse about our ideas, that will feel so much less stressful and inundating. So, if you didn't like a book, tell us. Tell us why. Be a little snarky. Get a little attitude. It's totally fine. It's just a book. And that's it. So let me know in the comments below what trends you are wanting to see go in, go out, stay in, stay out, leave behind, bring forward, and feel free to be snarky about it in the comments. So thanks for hanging out. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe. All of that really helps so that we can keep talking about books. I'll see you next time, and happy reading.